Oh, doesn't look like too many people have popped up, but we'll see what we can do. Figured in light of the UN visit, we were going to find Mr. Mad Panda found the transcript for me of Trump's speech. My guest today, Rhetorical Entertainment, on his channel, the link being below, actually aired the speech, so you get to hear Trump if you go to his channel. Say it in his words with his inflections and his wonderful style. Good morning or good afternoon, in this case, Doubting Tommy. How are you doing today? What we're going to do is we're going to read the speech little by little, stop, make comparisons, do some commentary, and also we're going to do a little fact checking, because sometimes in his speeches he can be slightly off with his numbers, and I'm saying that nicely. Like I said, Rhetorical Entertainment is joining me. He is currently muted right now, so if he wants to say hi, he can jump in and say hello. Getting ready for work, not so great. Ronan is, as always, sitting to my left. The dog is on the floor, so if you hear tippy tapping, that is Zeus walking around the room.
Yeah.
I am here.
Yeah.
I've been invited to speak.
Huh?
But now that I've been invited to speak, I will speak.
Let me turn you up a little bit in the hangout here. All right, here we go. So let's go ahead, and we've got like 5 people watching. I don't know if they're counting me or not, even though I don't have it up.
No, that's about to be 6. I'll get there eventually.
All right, cool. Don't forget to spread the word. Good afternoon, reality check, or good morning for you. And we also have No Name. Hi, how you doing? So this is the full text brought to us by Mr. Mad Panda off of the Politico website. So we're just going to go ahead and jump into it.
Looky here and everything. I hop on YouTube and everything. There's this damn MWM media shit again.
I know, right?
Every time they go online and everything, it pops up over here.
Annoying as heck, isn't it? Ah, geez.
I can't help myself. I have to go watch.
You do?
That's right.
Right. Because you may be in trouble if you don't.
I'll definitely be in trouble if I don't.
Not that great. Aw, No Name. I hope your day gets better. All right, so Mr. Secretary General, Mr. President, world leaders, and distinguished delegates, welcome to New York. It is a profound honor to stand here in my home city as a representative of the American people to address the people of the world. As millions of our citizens continue to suffer the effects of devastating hurricanes that have struck our country, I want to begin by expressing my appreciation to every leader in this room who has offered assistance and aid. The American people are strong and resilient, and they will emerge from these hardships more determined than ever before. I like how he opened the speech. He gives everybody props and thank yous.
Mm-hmm. A little buttering up before he slams them right against the floor.
Mm-hmm. All right, we've got, fortunately, the United States has done very well since Election Day last November 8th. The stock market is at an all-time high, a record. I forgot to look that up, but I'm sure, since he always keeps his eye on the stock market, that he's probably accurate with that one.
Stocks have been actually doing really, really well.
Okay.
The Dow Jones, as of closing bell on Friday, was 22,349.59.
Wow. All right. Unemployment is at its lowest level in 16 years, and because of our regulatory and other reforms, we have more people working in the United States today than ever before. Companies are moving back, creating job growth, the likes of which our country has not seen in a very long time. And it has just been announced that we will be spending almost $700 billion on our military and defense. We're going to take a look at these unemployment numbers. Now, I'm going to be showing two numbers, which is the way that I usually do this. This is the U3 number. This is what they call the official unemployment numbers. As of August 2017, unemployment is 4.4%, which, if you're following up, is pretty accurate. It is the lowest it has been over the past 17, 16 years. When you get up here, the only difference is that the year 2000 was 0.3% lower than it is now in the same month, but that's being a little nitpicky. So he was close when he said that.
Not 17.
I know he said 16, but technically it's 17 from 2000 to.
He only said 16.
Right. So at 2001 it was 4.9, which would make him accurate.
That's right.
Now I have a question here. Are the numbers, is that the true unemployment rate, as in like the people who've dropped out of the job market, or is it people that are just looking for jobs? Because there are two different rates for unemployment.
Yeah. There's the U6 and everything, and the reason they don't use the U6 and everything, that there's a section of the U6 that is speculation.
Yeah.
It's their best educated guess using
unemployment stats and
a whole varying system of mathematics and equations and everything. It's pretty accurate if you look at it.
Yeah.
But just because there's that, the plus or minus is a little too broad.
Yeah. Because they use the stats from the unemployment office. They use the stats from the Census Bureau because the Census Bureau.
And they use the stats from what the known job market is.
And they also use a survey that the Census Bureau uses to track unemployment, length of unemployment, and hours worked. So all that together constitutes this U6 number, which is, like he said, speculative. And we're going to break it down right here. The U6 unemployment rate counts not only people without work seeking full-time employment, the more familiar U3 rate, but also counts marginally attached workers and those working part-time for economic reasons. Note that some of these part-time workers counted as employed by U3 could be working as little as an hour a week. And the marginally attached workers include those who have gotten discouraged and stopped looking but still want to work. The age considered for this calculation is 16 years and over. And that's the speculative part because the Census Bureau doesn't tend to interview under 16 without parental consent. And a lot of times in these samples, 16-year-olds don't fall in unemployment. Did I say under 16?
Yeah.
Under 18, sorry. Under 18 because not only adult consent, but they just don't. 16-year-olds, anything under 18 usually doesn't fall into a sample unless the survey is targeting that particular age group specifically.
Okay.
So, as of 2017 in August, 8.6% is the U6 number. As of 2001, it was 8.1. So it's still off by about 0.5%, but he's fairly accurate when he says it's at its lowest. So we have a Vercingenerix in the live chat and a gerbil. Hi, welcome. So far, he's doing good with his numbers.
That's Scotch.
Yep, that's Scotch in the live chat.
Okay.
Okay, so now we're going to go.
I recognize the picture.
Back to the speech. Okay, let's see. Our military will soon be the strongest it has ever been. For more than 70 years in times of war and peace, the leaders of nations, movements, and religions have stood before this assembly. Like them, I intend to address some of the very serious threats before us today, but also the enormous potential waiting to be unleashed. We live in a time of extraordinary opportunity. Breakthroughs in science, technology, and medicine are curing illnesses and solving problems that prior generations thought impossible to solve. But each day brings news of growing dangers that threaten everything we cherish and value. Terrorists and extremists have gathered strength and spread to every region of the planet. Rogue regimes represented in this body not only support terrorists, but threaten other nations and their own people with the most destructive weapons known to humanity. I think he was targeting that at Iran.
Mm-hmm. And a little bit at Syria.
And North Korea.
And Syria as well. North Korea. I don't think North Korea has a representative in the UN. I think Kim Jong-un pulled him out.
I think I saw someone there taking notes. When I was actually watching this speech, there was a camera that focused on somebody, but there were also.
They may not have an ambassador there and everything, but there was probably an aide there doing exactly what Rhetorical said and everything.
Yeah.
You know, taking notes and
Yep.
being nosy.
Let me see if I can get. All right. So yeah. So we already see his first digs. This one is a little more passive aggressive at Iran, but he's going to get a little more into that a little later on. And Nightbot was. Oh, there we go. There's Nightbot. Okay. So here we are.
And good. Hello, Fenrir.
Hello, Fen. Hello, Jimmy Hats. We're getting a lot of people in the chat. We've got 11 viewers. Thank you for showing up. Authority and authoritarian powers seek to collapse the values, the systems, and alliances that prevented conflict and tilted the world toward freedom since World War II. He isn't wrong there. I can't say he's wrong there. I can't disagree with him there. Because, you know, the growing dangers, he could also have been talking to the delegates of Germany and Sweden and France, you know, all the people in the EU, since the EU is, you know, all about globalization and open borders.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, globalization, open borders, which is destroying their countries.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a personal opinion. So,
But I would be surprised because I think the UN too kind of is on the same page as the EU. But I almost wonder if the UN were to try and rule over Europe, if the EU would want to push for sovereignty over their region.
You know, that would be interesting to find out.
you know, well, the UN has spoke for the EU now for what, since nearly its inception.
I think so.
I mean, the EU says something, and the UN goes, "Yeah, that's right." And they were not created as a yes man organization.
No, they were not. They were supposed to help with, you know, humanitarian efforts and to keep the peace, basically.
Yeah.
Diplomacy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
First and foremost, international criminal networks traffic drugs, weapons, people, forced dislocation and mass migration, threaten our borders, and new forms of aggression exploit technology to menace our citizens. I think he's talking about cyber crimes, cyber hacking.
He's talking about the influx of the outpouring of refugees from all over the world flooding into areas, and basically, I mean, they're making do with the technology, using trucks and vehicles as weapons.
Yeah.
Improvising explosives.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going super
Acid
low.
attacks in England, in the UK. You know, machetes, knives.
Mm-hmm. If anything, what's going on over in Europe, especially in London, where it's hard as hell to get a firearm because you can still get some, according to our British friends, they're using, you don't need guns to hurt people.
No, you know.
And this is what, you know, the people over there are proving. They're using trucks, they're using knives, they're throwing acid. You know, you take one weapon away and people are going to use other methods.
Well, look at the bucket bomb in the tube station. They said that could have been made from stuff you could buy at any high street chemist and like hardware store for about 100 pounds.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes, it doesn't take much to know that. Now it has been banned in nearly every country in the world, but there was a thing called the Anarchist Cookbook out. And back in the 70s, I read not only the Anarchist Cookbook, but the Anarchist Handbook. And it goes in great detail how to make scratch your own improvised anti-personnel devices.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And as Fen said, if you want to kill people, you will kill people, gun ban or no.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't
like it's
matter.
hard to get it. Like it's hard to get. Well, Ben knows around here and everything. You know, $75 and everything, and knowing the right people, you could go in certain neighborhoods and pick up a gun.
Mm-hmm. All right. To put it simply, We meet, did I skip something? No. We meet at a time of both immense promise and great peril. It is entirely up to us whether we lift the world to new heights or let it fall into a valley of disrepair. We have it in our power, should we so choose, to lift millions from poverty, to help our citizens realize their dreams, and to ensure that new generations of children are raised free from violence, hatred, and fear. The institution was founded in the aftermath of 2 world wars to help shape this better future. It was based on the vision that diverse nations could cooperate to protect their sovereignty, preserve their security, and promote their prosperity. So he is, going a little bit over the history of how the UN was funded and, founded and started. He is right. It did come about after World War II. But in order to, raise children free from violence, hatred, and fear, we have got to find a way to, I'm not going to say stop the rhetoric from the regressive left, but to show people that organizations like Antifa, as well as KKK, and all those, they're not good ideologies. They're not good things to follow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's see here. It was in the same period, exactly 70 years ago, the United States developed the Marshall Plan to help restore Europe. Those 3 beautiful pillars, they're pillars of peace, sovereignty, security, and prosperity. The Marshall Plan was built on the noble idea that the whole world is safer when nations are strong, independent, and free. As President Truman said in his message to Congress at that time, our support of European recovery is in full accord with our support of the United Nations. The success of the United Nations depends upon the independent strength of its members. So he's going a little bit more into this. And I like how he sort of opened up and segued into this. I like his transitions are really good. You can tell people are, it's like his address to Congress. He wrote it and then he started asking people, what do you think? Do I need to change anything? How do I change the pace? Because it's becoming evident that he knows when to talk off the cuff and when to sit down, be serious about it, and come up with a presidential speech.
Penrare. Penrare said it's no longer needed. Actually, Ben, unfortunately, it is kind of needed for worldwide relief efforts, especially when there's an aftermath of war-torn countries and things like that, because they do help bring in a lot of food, medical supplies. They have medical teams that go out with armed escorts. And so that really and truly they are needed to an extent, but I don't think that they should have a role in active politics and what's the word I'm looking for? Policies
and policing.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we all could do that and everything, but they're more of a logistics service is what they should be and everything. Just arranging everything, getting everything together, and sending everything out. And Scotch, our buddy Scotch, and everything is correct. The League of Nations ended 70 years ago. If I'm not mistaken, he's correct on that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let me see. We do not expect diverse countries to share the same cultures, traditions, or even systems of government, but we do expect all nations to uphold these 2 core sovereign duties: to respect the interests of their own people and the rights of every other sovereign nation. This is the beautiful vision of this institution, and this is the foundation for cooperation and success. Let me see. Strong sovereign nations let diverse countries with different values, different cultures, and different dreams not just coexist, but work side by side on a basis of mutual respect. Strong sovereign nations let their people take ownership of the future and control their own destiny, and strong sovereign nations allow individuals to flourish in the fullness of the life intended by God. Now, I don't know if he's going to mention this or not, but I am going to put this up there for fact purposes. This is the breakdown of the contributions that different countries give to the United Nations, and Fenn was a bit off. We don't supply 15% of the budget. We contribute 22% of the budget.
No,
to
he
the
said
United.
85.
Yeah, 85.
What, then
Yeah, we do 22%. Japan does 19.5%. Germany 9.8%. France 6.5%. United Kingdom 5.5%. Italy 5.1%. Canada 2.6%. Spain 2.5%. Brazil 2.4%, and the Republic of Korea 1.8%. This needs to be more even across the board. This is very, very lopsided.
Well, and that doesn't even include the other efforts that we put into place for humanitarian aid outside of the UN and military support.
Right. This is just, the contributions that we contribute to the organization. I want to make that particular clear. This is the contribution of the member states to the regular budget of the United Nations. So we still provide the bulk of the money to the regular budget when it should be even across the board.
Yeah, what's the count on how many nations are there?
These are, I think there's 10 here in this one. 1, 2, 3, 4,
so it should be 10%
6,
for everybody.
7, 8, 9.
193 nations, United Nations. Maybe those other nations could pitch in a little bit too.
I mean, we're funding. It's our land that they meet on over there in New York. We're providing most of the funding for the different aspects of the UN.
Gerbil, the UK is a little bit bigger, if I'm not mistaken, than the size of a small state.
And the despot murders leader. Reality check. But I'm old enough to remember why the UN was formed. I'm concerned with the recent actions of North Korea and the despot murderous leader of Russia. Another world war is a bigger risk without the UN. I agree. And we will probably touch on that after we are done with the speech. Also, why is it that it's hosted here? It should be on neutral land. I think it's because Truman was the one that headed the project to get the UN together, and that is why it's here.
Well, at the time,
believe it or not, New York and all that and everything is a fairly safe place.
Well, at the time,
it's always been a melting pot there.
The stable, safe country. I mean, it was just after World War II.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody else was still having to rebuild from the damage from the war. We're the only ones. The U.S. and Canada are really the only countries that made it out relatively unscathed in the first world.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, Fenrir. The U.S. is assessed 22% of the regular budget, approximately $622 million. That is more than just, chump change.
20 countries will be charged minimum peacekeeping assessment of, that $8,470 a piece.
Yeah. They should take it up. They should see how much it costs for all the different aspects in the budget, and they should do it evenly across the board.
Yeah, it should be an even distribution.
Yeah, we shouldn't be the ones taking the brunt of all this.
Yeah, and Fenrir is correct, and it is a huge differential, and it should be balanced out. They should not have the power to say, "Well, you can't do this."
Yeah.
Yes, the fuck I can.
Yeah.
Who the fuck you think you are? We are a sovereign nation.
Yep, exactly. All right, this timeless document has been a foundation of peace, prosperity, and freedom. Oh, no, wait a minute. I skipped something. Let me go back. In America, we do not seek to impose our way of life on anyone, but rather to let it shine and as an example for everyone to watch. This week gives our country a special 30th anniversary of our beloved Constitution, the oldest constitution still in use in the world today. This timeless document has been the foundation of peace, prosperity, and freedom for the Americans and for countless millions across the globe whose own countries have found inspiration in its respect for human nature, human dignity, and the rule of law. The greatest in the United States Constitution is its first 3 beautiful words. They are, we, the people. Generations of Americans have sacrificed to maintain the promise of those words, the promise of our country and of our great country. In America, the people govern, the people rule, and the people are sovereign. I was elected not to take power, but to give power to the American people where it belongs. I like how he phrased that.
Mm-hmm.
In foreign affairs, we are renewing this founding principle of sovereignty. Our government's first duty is to its people, to our citizens, to serve their needs, to ensure their safety, and to preserve their rights and to defend their values. As President of the United States, I will always put America first, just like you, as the leaders of your country, will always and should always put your countries first. I wholeheartedly agree with that. You know, because if you look at other countries, they think about themselves first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they should.
The thing is, when we do it, we get backlash for it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, when he talks about doing it and everything, oh, you can't do this.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do that. And it's like, yes, we can. We're insured, you know, citizen by birth or citizen by, you know, you've immigrated here naturally.
Yeah.
You've become you've done the work. You've become a citizen of the U.S. and everything.
Mm-hmm.
We should, you know, be able to prosper without having to worry.
Sovereign nations in Europe are only sovereign because America put a lot of effort and money into making sure they stayed that way.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. All right, I zoomed in to make this a little bit bigger, so hopefully in a few seconds after the delay, people will be able to see the type a little bit better. All responsible leaders have an obligation to serve their own citizens, and the nation state remains the best vehicle for elevating the human condition. But making a better life for our people also requires us to work together in close harmony and unity to create a more safe and peaceful future for all people. And I think he's talking about their diplomacy and negotiating for peace. The United States will forever be a great friend to the world and especially to its allies, but we can no longer be taken advantage of or enter into a one-sided deal where the United States gets nothing in return. As long as I hold this office, I will defend America's interests above all else. I think he's referring to the deal that Obama made with Iran and the one that he made with Cuba. Because both of those were very one-sided.
Yes, they were very, very one-sided.
Let me scroll down more. But in fulfilling our obligations to our nations, we also realize that it's in everyone's interest to seek a future where all nations can be sovereign, prosperous, and secure. America does more than speak for the values expressed in the United Nations Charter. Our citizens have paid the ultimate price in our freedom and the freedom of many nations represented in this great hall.
Yes,
America's devotion is measured on the battlefields where our young men and women have fought and sacrificed along allies, from the beaches of Europe to the deserts of the Middle East to the jungles of Asia. Or Southeast Asia, to be a little more precise, as in Korea and Vietnam. They even fought in Cambodia during the Vietnam War, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
It is an eternal credit to the American character that even after we and our allies emerged victorious from the bloodiest war in history, we did not seek territorial expansion or attempt to oppose, or impose in any way our way of life on others. Instead, we help build institutions such as this one to defend the sovereignty, security, and prosperity for all. And I believe you alluded to this in your live stream when you got to this part about the fact that we are not, you know, we're not a conquering nation.
Exactly.
Which I wholeheartedly agreed with.
Well, if you think about it, if we were a conquering nation, we would have gone into Afghanistan and Iraq and set up and taken over everything, and then America would have the oil resources down there, and we would have our own government down there.
That is true. I think somebody needs to go out again.
Yes. He's doing his happy dance.
Yep.
And I will take care of that right now.
He's making the spring sound.
Yes.
And that ear rape was due to a chair dragging across the wooden floor. Sorry about that. We don't have the most professional stream, but we hope to have one of the most informative ones. So, I mean, so far, I'm not having a problem with his speech at all. So far, he's hit many good points. He's been fairly accurate on his numbers. You know, and there have been times in previous, you can tell when he's doing a speech off the cuff, and this definitely is not a speech that's off the cuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this one was thought out.
Yeah. Well, I think he's becoming much more aware of the level of scrutiny on the things that he says.
Yeah. I think he's finally realizing that he's pretty much on a world stage now, that he has to really be careful as to how he says what he says.
Exactly.
As people do recognize him as the president, but recognition and respect as a leader are two different things.
Fenrir says, I wish we took the oil. My gas would not be almost $3 a gallon.
Yeah, I know.
I was 16 when we went into Afghanistan, and because people expected the war machine to improve the economy, gas actually went down quite a lot. I remember when I first started driving, I was paying about 96 cents a gallon for gas.
Yeah. And then we had, you know, all that debacle over there. I think it was Desert Shield. I don't think the gas started going up until after the second operation we had over there in Afghanistan, when the speculators on the market were driving the price of a barrel of oil up.
Well, and now they're artificially inflating prices by capping wells because they want to make a crap ton of money off of it. So they cap wells and lay people off to artificially inflate the prices.
Which is stupid because, I mean, we've got oil fields in Alaska. We've got the pipelines. The problem in our country is the number of refineries.
Mm-hmm. Well, and another problem is, and I apologize for taking us off topic so much, but the Obama administration intentionally imposed extra taxes on gasoline because he said he wanted the United States to, or the citizens to get used to paying more for gas. So he increased taxes to artificially inflate the prices as well.
Yeah, which nobody was happy about, because let's face it, every time taxes are levied, it's the middle class that suffers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the rich, and I don't want to say the top 1%, but the rich are the ones that, you know, yes, they pay higher taxes when you look at their income tax returns. They're in a higher tax bracket. But for the person that is, you know, middle income, we're the ones that always suffer the most, because we're always the ones that have to make adjustments whenever a new tax is levied, whenever there's, you know, a new tax that is put in the books that we have to keep track of. And it just becomes a burden to us. We're the backbone, actually, of the country. We're the blue-collar workers. You know, we're the ones that are out there. You know, you have your tradesmen that are middle class. And, you know, we are really the backbone of this country. Because let's face it, and Ronan, if he was in here, he would agree with me. If every 18-wheel truck operator were to stop running, this country would suffer greatly.
Yeah. Well, my father-in-law is a truck driver, and he's going back to work because his boss from the company that he retired from said that millennials just don't want to drive, and the ones that do are rolling trucks. So the trucking industry is hurting bad. They need drivers.
Mm-hmm. And there are some companies out there like Schneider that Ronan used to work for that will put you through a training program and get you behind the wheel of one of their trucks, and also give you the opportunity to become an owner-operator and give you control of the load board.
Mm-hmm.
So you can pick your own loads.
Yeah, because they want to incentivize people. It's the only way they can get people to drive trucks. And if people stop driving trucks, then people stop getting stuff.
Mm-hmm. And that's what people don't realize when they're complaining and when they petition to, you know, well, we don't want them driving on this road, and we don't want them driving on this road, and we don't want them on this interstate. The problem therein becomes, and when he comes back in, I'll ask him, because he knows more about the history of the interstates and the U.S. highways than I do. Because I believe, if I'm correct, and I'll ask him when he comes in, the interstates were for the big trucks and the highways were for the smaller vehicles. To start with, for more expedited deliveries. But I could have that backwards. So
Hello. Ooh.
To pay by the mile now. Well, yeah, because the last time he was an owner operator, he was being paid $1.75 a mile. Yes, the pay has been total shit for truck drivers for a long time now.
Yeah, just ask Magnus Deacon.
Oh yeah, well, Ronan too. Ronan's been driving. Ronan is a professional truck driver for 10+ years now. He can tell you the pay is shit.
Yeah.
25 cents to start is only in some companies. Schneider started you out. What was the rate?
I already had thing and everything. When I first started driving and everything, we got paid 22.5 cents a mile.
There you go, Fen.
Now, most companies now and everything will give you 28 cents a mile, you know, starting fresh out of school and everything. But still, that averages out an average week, which is 2,000 miles, and that's average, is only $560.
Yeah.
They're having it's Doubting Tommy said, I deal with truck drivers every day. They're having to get people from all over the country.
Yeah, because it's as Rhetorical said, you know, millennials now that are going behind the wheel of a truck, they don't want to drive. They want to get paid for not doing the work, and it doesn't happen that way.
Reality check. Here's a reality check for you and everything. The United States interstate system, or the Eisenhower interstate system, was created to move the military and commercial goods across the United States in a rapid fashion.
That's what I said. Thank you for backing it up. I thought I had it backwards. Woohoo!
No.
All right.
It wasn't meant at all or designed with anything, with anybody but trucks and the military. You know, and most truck drivers, myself, and I know Magnus has too, have had to sit and listen to people that drive nothing but four-wheelers all day long complain about the big trucks on the road.
Yep. Yeah, reality check backed me up in saying that I wasn't backwards. Yay. So that's no, I was right.
Scotch, here's the thing. My brother, and he's kicking himself on the butt, but he just made one delivery that paid him almost $5,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It depends on the delivery, too.
He missed out on a two-stop load that could have paid his truck $9,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
$9,000.
Yep, exactly.
It all depends on the load and how precious the load is and how well you're, like, doing your job, I'm assuming, too.
Well, my brother's like me and everything. If I say I'm going to get up and I'm going to drive 10 hours, Maddie, how often do I stop in 10 hours?
I have to make you stop because you forget to eat.
The other part of the problem is the cost of compliance. I mean, it costs a lot of money to comply with the rules now. That's why some of the older drivers are quitting. That's why my father-in-law won't do over the road. I mean, he's going back to work, but all he's going to be doing is putting trailers on docks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What were you going to say, Lou?
Gosh, gotta rack my brain for it now. Shit. Hey, don't blame me. I just got back dropping my aunt and her friend off.
All right. Well, if you
Stupid Huskers better win a damn game today, or I'm gonna throw a bitch fit.
Tommy, I've been at the I-80 truck stops more times than I can count, and
I-80 is a piece of shit.
I love that truck stop. I like the I-80, and I like Bosselman's out there, that way. I always stop at Mama Max's and everything, so I can get me a burger. They got good food out that way.
Yeah, my only question though is which is
the U.S. more times than I can count.
My only question: which is better, Iowa or Nebraska truck stops?
Iowa.
Damn it!
And here's what,
I'm from Nebraska. Fuck off.
Look, if I'm going into Nebraska, I'm not going to stop at a truck stop. I'm stopping someplace that got big enough parking and everything, so I can go enjoy some of those lovely Omaha steaks. Now, you talking to somebody that knows how to eat.
Yeah, he does.
If I want a steak, there's very few places that I'm going to stop. Out in Nebraska, I will stop for steaks out there. In and around Dodge City, Kansas, fresh meat.
Have you ever gone by
Texas.
like Hog Wild or something? Because that is good barbecue.
Oh, Hog Wild? Yes. Actually, me and a couple other guys actually stopped by there once. We had to park in one spot and literally take a cab over to the place. But the guy was from right around the area.
Yeah.
He said, "You got to eat here." And,
it is good.
That place gets you in trouble, though. I'm just gonna let you know and everything. Hog Wild will get you in trouble because you will sit there and eat and you won't want to leave.
All right, here we go. Let's continue.
True,
if you guys need something, if you guys want to say something, say coffee talk, and then that's going to be the next person who talks, because I figure that's the best way to do it and keep in theme with our server. All right. For the diverse nations of this world, this is our hope. We want harmony and friendship, not conflict and strife. We are guided by outcomes, not ideology. We have a policy of principled realism, rooted in shared goals, interests, and values. That realism forces us to confront a question facing every leader and nation in this room. It is a question we cannot escape or avoid. We will slide down the path of complacency, numb to the challenges, threats, and even wars that we face. Or do we have enough strength and pride to confront these dangers today so that our citizens can enjoy peace and prosperity tomorrow? If we desire to lift up our citizens, if we aspire to the approval of history, then we must fulfill our sovereign duties to the people we faithfully represent. We must protect our nations, their interests, and their futures. We must reject threats to sovereignty from the Ukraine to the South China Sea. We must uphold respect for law, respect for borders, and respect for culture, and the peaceful engagement these allow. And just as the founders of this body intended, we must work together and confront together those who threaten us with chaos, turmoil, and terror. The righteous many do not confront the wicked few, then evil will triumph. When decent people and nations become bystanders to history, the forces of destruction only gather power and strength. No one has shown more contempt for other nations and for the well-being of their own people than the depraved regime in North Korea. It is responsible for the starvation deaths of millions of North Koreans and for the imprisonment, torture, killing, and oppression of countless more. We are all witness to the regime's deadly abuse when an innocent American college student, Otto Warmbier, was returned to America only to die a few days later. We saw it in the assassination of the dictator's brother using banned nerve agents in an international airport. We know it kidnapped a 13-year-old Japanese girl from a beach in her own country to enslave her as a language tutor for North Korea's spies. If this is not twisted enough, now North Korea's reckless pursuit of nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles threatens the entire world with unthinkable loss of human life. It is an outrage that some nations would not only trade with such a regime, but would arm, supply, and financially support a country that imperils the world with nuclear conflict. No nation on earth has an interest in seeing this band of criminals arm itself with nuclear weapons and missiles. The United States has great strength and patience, but if it is forced to defend itself or its allies, we will have no choice but to totally destroy North Korea. Rocket Man is on a suicide mission for himself and for his regime. The United States is ready, willing, and able, but hopefully this will not be necessary. That's what the United Nations is about. That's what the United Nations is for. Let's see how they do. It is time for North Korea to realize that the denuclearization is its only acceptable future. The United Nations Security Council recently held 2 unanimous 15-0 votes, adopting hard-hitting resolutions against North Korea, which I will be looking up today. And I want to thank China and Russia for joining the vote to impose sanctions, along with all of their members of the Security Council. Thank you to all involved. So what are your thoughts on that particular part of the speech?
Well, I did have to, sorry. I did wonder, I think there's an echo somewhere, just how he worded it, that we will have to totally destroy North Korea. Why would you word it like that? You sound
your regime. because obviously we don't want to destroy the citizens of North Korea. I have some coworkers that actually live in South Korea, and they've said that the North Korean government actually has huge propaganda within their country that basically says if you defect to South Korea, they will kill you and eat you. So the people who defect usually defect to China, and China, from what I understand, is sometimes in the habit of sending people back to North Korea.
Yeah,
but
and there was one resolution that called for the repatriation, I think. Oops, I broke my rule.
You have a South Korean rule that if you defect to South Korea, then they have money to get you education. They'll give you money, give you an apartment, get you an education, and help you find a job. So they really want to help people from North Korea and give them a reason to defect.
Yeah. And Fenrir says North Korea is 100% brainwashed. I don't blame it.
It is a heavily, it's a propaganda state.
Yeah.
The propaganda is, you know,
that's the whole reason it exists.
All telling the people and everything that only the leadership is fighting for you, and it's because of everybody else and everything, and their dislike for the North Korean people that they are oppressed.
They're not. It's like every SJW ever. They're not oppressed. They're just really, really bad at what they fucking do.
Yeah, exactly.
I do really like what Trump called.
Yeah, exactly.
Ow! I bit the inside of my cheek. Fuck.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Rocket Man was very imaginative, and it was. I like how he worked it into the speech. That was good. Okay, but we must do much more. It is time for all nations to work together to isolate the Kim regime until it ceases hostile behavior. We face this decision not only in North Korea. It is far past time for the nations of the world to confront another reckless regime, one that speaks openly of mass murder to America, destruction to Israel, and ruin for many leaders and nations in this room. The Iranian government masks a corrupt dictatorship behind the false guise of a democracy. It has turned a wealthy country with a rich history and culture into an economically depleted rogue state whose chief exports are violence, bloodshed, and chaos. The longest suffering victims of Iran's leaders are, in fact, its own people. Rather than use its resources to improve Iranian lives, its oil profits go to fund Hezbollah and other terrorists that kill innocent Muslims and attack their peaceful Arab and Israeli neighbors. This wealth, which rightly belongs to Iran's people, also goes to shore up Bashar al-Assad's dictatorship, fuel Yemen's civil war, and undermine peace throughout the entire Middle East. And this is also the part of the speech where they went to the crowd and they showed the delegate from Iran looking like he ate something that went sour, and Netanyahu, nodding in agreement and clapping because it's true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, part of the government charter is to destroy Israel.
Yeah.
What I don't get is Iran the only state that thinks that way, or are there other countries like it that think that way?
Right now, I believe Iran is the one, and if I am wrong, I'm sure the live chat will correct me, that funds most of the terrorist cells.
Well, yeah, I normally, I would say that Iran is probably one of the hubs for people who tend to think this way, not trying to make a generalization, but that's just how it is with that area of the world. Is like that part of the Middle East, like around where the borders of Iran are, is probably where most people come from that have those radical ideas. If that makes any sense. Ugh.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Here we go.
Everyone in the area wants to destroy Israel? What? Oh.
Well, Israel has been in contention with Palestine. Iran doesn't like them either.
Nobody likes. I'm gonna say this right now. I don't think very many people actually like Israel that much. Sadly.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean,
it's a nice country and everything, but like, in terms of I've always asked myself this question. In terms of like being an actual country, anything I hear about like the relationship between America and Israel is normally like the U.S. helping them out constantly. I don't know.
It does seem to be that way.
So it's like, I feel like they're more dependent on the U.S. than they should be, but I don't. It's just so rocky.
Well, and it's hard when every single one of their neighbors wants them to die.
It really is, because it doesn't make us look or feel much better.
Mm-mm.
It doesn't help us with like our reputation across the world, because everybody already fucking hates our guts already for the most part. So
yeah, but I mean, we've always tried to help out our allies as much as possible, and
we need them to keep the area stable. I gotta wonder if that's really the case, though.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they've been in if you just look at the Palestinian people and the Israelis, they have been fighting over, and I believe it's the Palestinians, the Gaza Strip for God only knows how long.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay. Palestine and Israel, that's been like a fight. I want to say that's been a fight like since biblical times, like since the Bible has pretty much been like, which Holy Land is it? Like, I think I want to say it dates back to almost BC,
when Rome destroyed Israel shortly after the beginning of BCE. The Common Era. When Rome destroyed Israel, they brought in these Arab groups and called them Palestinians based off of the Philistines from the Old Testament as an insult. And them to migrate into Europe. One of the interesting things is the Palestinians could potentially become refugees in other Muslim countries and integrate, except that all of the other Islamic nations down there have passed laws making it illegal for Palestinians to integrate into their society and own property, have jobs, or anything like that, because they want to force the Palestinians to stay in the Palestinian settlements within the Israeli borders to make them into victims, to have another propaganda machine against Israel.
Oh my gosh. Why are these people, why is this like, it feels like some of these people who try and do this are like the teenagers that I deal with online that I fucking hate.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's like little teenagers running around, except they're fucking countries and nations and leaders, and what the fuck?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, that's the whole point and everything. What better way than to have a forward base of operations without actually having to put your military there than to trap a small a group of individuals that will fight.
Yeah.
At a moment's notice and everything, and park them right on top one that you hate.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing, too, is that also goes to show that the only country in that region where Palestinians have any rights, the right to vote, the right to own property, the right to have jobs, the right to be part of the government, is Israel. Palestinians have all of those rights in Israel.
Yeah. But they don't want Israel to be there.
Mm-hmm.
That creates the major problem.
That's been going on for thousands of years.
Well, according to Reality Check, yes, Palestine versus Israel, it actually started the way we know it in the early 1960s. Palestine was occupied by the British after World War II and refused to let Jewish refugees in.
Feels like it's been going on for longer, dude.
Yep, it has. All right, here we go. We cannot let
it's been going on since before then, but they've just not been called the same thing.
Yeah, he did say as we know it now, since the early 1960s. So, you know, he's realizing that there's a lot more history there.
Oh, yeah, the way he phrased it made it sound like, oh, this started in the 60s and that's the way it happened or something like that. Sorry.
Yep. Afternoon.
Took that wrong.
Yep. But I mean, it's that region over there has always been volatile. It's always had its problems, either political or military. And every time there's been a ceasefire between Palestine and Israel, it's always been the Palestinians that have broken the ceasefire. And it's always been Israel that has been vilified for it. And it's like, okay, you're looking at the wrong country because that's not the one that broke the ceasefire.
You see, they shot at us. They shot at the hospital. Well, you set up 5 rocket launchers on top of that hospital.
And they intentionally put them in hospitals and schools and daycares specifically because they know the Israelis are not going to fire at them. Yeah. They're using their children as human shields.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's disgusting.
It is.
It's also against the Geneva Convention.
Yep, it is.
Oh, for fuck's.
You're involving non-combatants in a combat situation and everything. It's completely against the Geneva Convention.
Yep, it is. All right, let's see what else he's got to say. We cannot let a murderous regime continue these destabilizing activities while building dangerous missiles, and we cannot abide by an agreement if it provides cover for the eventual construction of a nuclear program. The Iran deal was one of the worst and most one-sided transactions the United States has ever entered into. Frankly, that deal is an embarrassment to the United States, and I don't think you've heard the last of it. Believe me. It is time for the world. It is time for the entire world to join us in demanding that Iran's government end its pursuit of death and destruction. It is time for the regime to free all Americans and citizens of other nations that they have unjustly detained, and above all, Iran's government must stop supporting terrorists, begin serving its own people, and respect the sovereign rights of its neighbors. The entire world understands that the good people of Iran want change, and other than the vast military power of the United States, that Iran's people are what their leaders fear the most. This is what causes the regime to restrict internet access, tear down satellite dishes, shoot unarmed student protesters, and imprison political reformers. And this is also the part of the speech where the Iranian delegate looked really pissed off, and Netanyahu had this shit-eating grin from ear to ear on his face, and he couldn't clap loud enough.
Mm-hmm.
And our own John Kelly was like, "Oh Jesus, he just did not say that, did he?"
Well, I'm just wondering, like, I kind of want to like have like the, like if there was any video or streaming of it, like have that on like silent in the background while we're reading this, and just see the images of these guys just looking pissed off.
Rhetorical did play the whole speech on his channel, and I've got that linked below.
Oh dang, boy.
Yeah, all the reactions and everything down there. And yeah, it's even Philly D covered it by taking screen caps of John Kelly and screen caps of the delegate from Iran, and you know, and pictures of Netanyahu on his show earlier in the week. And the difference in all the reactions was absolutely hilarious. Because John Kelly literally looked like that high school kid whose parent had just embarrassed the hell out of him. He really did.
It's not my dad. It's not my dad.
Yeah.
Really, it's not my dad.
This is not my parental guardian figure.
Right. It was almost as if he was going, "Whose president is that?"
Not mine.
Not mine. Yeah. Oppressive regimes cannot endure forever, and the day will come when the Iranian people will face a choice. They will continue down the path of poverty, bloodshed, and terror, or will the Iranian people return to the nation's proud roots as the center of civilization, culture, and wealth, where the people can be happy and prosperous once again? The Iranian regime's support for terror is in stark contrast to the recent commitments of many of its neighbors to fight terrorism and halt its financing. In Saudi Arabia last year, I was greatly honored to address the leaders of more than 50 Arab and Muslim nations, which is called the United Arab Emirates, I believe. We agreed that all responsible nations must work together to confront terrorists and the Islamic extremism that inspires them. We will stop radical Islamic terrorism because we cannot allow it to tear up our nation and indeed to tear up the entire world. We must destroy the terrorist safe haven, transit, funding, and any form of support for their vile and sinister ideologies. We must drive them out of our nations. It is time to expose and hold responsible those countries who support and finance terror groups like Al-Qaeda, Hezbollah, the Taliban, and others that slaughter innocent people. and our allies are working together throughout the Middle East to crush the loser terrorists and to stop the reemergence of safe havens they use to launch attacks on all of our people. I love how he's not afraid to say radical Islamic terrorism, which are 3 words most of Congress tries to avoid saying when they're talking about the terrorism in the world.
Didn't President Obama go an entire 8 years without using that phrase?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes, he did.
Yes, he did.
He avoided it like the plague.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking pussy.
Well, and like I know that there are a lot of Muslims who are not that way. So there's nothing wrong with saying radical Islamic terror instead of just saying Islam.
No one thinks that every single fucking Islamic person or anybody who, like, follows the Islamic faith, everyone knows not everybody is like this. Hashtag not all. Every single fucking time. It's like...
Yeah.
The fact that people still try and use that as a valid argument is just so mind-bogglingly stupid that I gotta sit back and be like, do I need to fucking respond to you because you're not gonna listen?
No, they're not, because these are the same people that, you know, if you're a rational individual, you know that not all Americans think like the regressive left.
Yeah.
You know that not all people that follow the Islamic faith are a member of ISIS or Al-Qaeda or Hezbollah. You know this because there's always going to be 2 sides of the same coin when it comes to a religious ideology. You're going to have your radicals, and you're going to have what they're considering moderates, the people that follow the parts of their religion that seem respectable, that seem reasonable, and shy away from the stuff that is militant.
And not
it's the same thing with any religion. It's the same thing with Christianity. That's why I kind of understand why people like Hunter Avalon are like so adamant about, you know, Islam's needing a reformation and stuff like that. I mean, I can understand that. I may not necessarily always agree with it, but I do get that, you know, Christianity went through a reformation, and it's not as obviously we don't have crusades, and people still try and use that as a fucking argument as to why Christianity is worse than fucking Islam, but it's like, gee, when have we actually, like, tried to kill people on a grand scale in a short period of time, like several times in a short period of time, and my fucking tablet's not working, damn it.
Yeah, they're always going to refer to the Spanish Inquisition for the spread of Catholicism. They're always going to refer to the Crusades. In Africa, you have the Coptic Christians, which are still militant, but the Coptic Christians don't represent all of Christianity.
I've never even fucking heard of the fuckers, so...
There you go. Let me see what we've got. Last month, I announced a new strategy for victory in the fight against this evil in Afghanistan. From now on, our security interests will dictate the length and scope of military operations, not arbitrary benchmarks and timetables set up by politicians, which means he's going to let the military run military operations and not look at the politicians for guidance.
Which, if previous administrations, both previous administrations, Bush and Obama, had done that, we would not have seen the rise of ISIS.
Exactly.
No, we wouldn't. And he's got the right person sitting at the head of the military.
Mad Dog Mattis.
You don't see Mattis on the television all day long saying, we're going to do this. No, he sends a message, go do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and find out when bombs hit the ground.
Yeah, exactly.
My grandparents got like so upset when he appointed Mattis because I don't fucking know. They thought he was basically crazy and we were going to have like a slow downfall in the military or some shit. And it's been going for at least 8 months and we have not had any issues. So I'm kind of hopeful. But for me, it's just like, I'm not going to hold my breath for anybody. I'm just going to let what happens happen. And I'm not going to bitch or whine about it in the meantime. So.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This to me is, one of the examples I've been trying to tell people that, Trump as a person, like him or leave him, he knows his limitations. He knows the limits of his comprehension in certain things. And he tries to appoint people that are the best at what they do. Henceforth, Mattis in this particular position.
He didn't do a very good job with the educational one.
I did say he tried.
Really, but yeah, he tried. But yeah, for me, coming from like a family of educators, it's pretty obvious that DeVos is not very good at what she does.
Yeah. All right.
But that's besides the point. It's like he's made pretty good choices, like however many times out of 10. I'm not gonna say 9 out of 10 because it's not that much, but it's more than 5.
Yeah. All right, here we go. I have also totally changed the rules of engagement in our fight against the Taliban and other terrorist groups. In Syria and Iraq, we have made big gains toward lasting defeat of ISIS. In fact, our country has achieved more against ISIS in the last 8 months than it has in many, many years combined. We seek the de-escalation of the Syrian conflict. Let me scroll this up a little bit. And a political solution that honors the will of the Syrian people. The actions of the criminal regime of Bashar al-Assad, including the use of chemical weapons against his own citizens, even innocent children, shock the conscience of every decent person. No society can be safe if banned chemical weapons are allowed to spread. That is why the United States carried out a missile strike on the air base that launched the attack. We appreciate the efforts of the United Nations agencies that are providing vital humanitarian assistance in areas liberated from ISIS, and we especially thank Jordan, Turkey, and Lebanon for their role in hosting refugees from the Syrian conflict. The United States is a compassionate nation and has spent billions and billions of dollars in helping to support this effort. We seek an approach to refugee resettlement that is designed to help these horribly treated people and which enables their eventual return to their home countries to be a part of the rebuilding process. For the cost of resettling one refugee in the United States, we can assist more than 10 in their home region. Out of the goodness of our hearts, we offer financial assistance to hosting countries in the region, and we support recent agreements of the G20 nations that will seek to host refugees as close to their home countries as possible. This is the safe, responsible, and humanitarian approach, and I agree with that.
Yeah, let them live in an area that has a culture that they're familiar with so that it's easier for them to assimilate and rebuild their lives.
Yeah. I mean, not only that, if you look at it from a cultural development standpoint, if you let them come to these other countries, settle and become citizens of these other countries, you're taking possible talent, world political leaders, tradesmen, scientists, and, and people and educators from these countries that can help rebuild these countries and make them better.
Yeah, but then I think in contrast, you also have to address some people not acclimating as well. Like, I do remember, like, I can't remember who exactly it was, but I remember somebody shot and showed a video of, like, people in London trying to police other people on what they did in the streets, essentially, like in some part of London or some part of a city in England.
Yeah, Sharia enforcement gangs.
Yeah, that's inevitable, and I'd like that to stop, because you're not going to convert an entire fucking country, especially when they're modernized kind of past your previous country. Like, I hate to say this, but like Western countries compared to like those constantly following Sharia law and making it actual governing law, those countries are far less advanced, like as far as like mannerisms, mindsets, all that stuff goes.
Well, and some of those countries reject technology because it goes against Sharia law.
Yeah,
exactly, and it can be taken literally, or it can be taken into the account that they're not going to assimilate because they think it's sinful or something.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they view us as infidels because we are not following the Islam faith. And they also reject those that left the Muslim faith, calling them apostates.
Well, and a lot of extremists actually view everyone who is not a Muslim and apostate, because they believe that everyone is born a Muslim, and if you decide not to be a Muslim as you grow up, then you're an apostate. So they view anybody who is outside of the faith as an apostate instead of an infidel.
Well, that's fucking stupid.
And that is only some factions, but it is the
It's
case.
still fucking stupid.
Uh-huh.
Hello, Teddy. A short break here to shill. If you like what you're listening to, and if you believe that Rhetorical Entertainment bears a further looking into, his link is in the description below. He does content like this and other commentary that is very insightful. So go check him out, please. He also needs the support. We also have Lou on with us for commentary. We are going through Trump's UN speech transcript. I did find, well, not me, but Mr. Mad Panda, who hangs out in my Discord, found the link to the actual transcript of the speech, and that is what I am reading and what we are commenting on in this live stream. You can support this stream by tipping the stream by using the PayPal link, or visiting my store and purchasing some handmade jewelry, or placing a special order in the Dragon's Den for your own chainmail dragon. Now that I sounded like a freaking commercial, we will continue. For decades, the United States has dealt with migration challenges here in the Western Hemisphere. We have learned that, over the long term, uncontrolled migration is deeply unfair to both the sending and the receiving countries. For the sending countries, it reduces domestic pressure to pursue needed political and economic reform, and drains them of the human capital necessary to motivate and implement those reforms. For the receiving countries, the substantial costs of uncontrolled migration are borne overwhelmingly by low-income citizens whose concerns are often ignored by both media and government. I want to salute the work of the United Nations in seeking to address the problems that cause people to flee from their homes. The United Nations and African Union led peacekeeping missions to have invaluable contributions in stabilizing conflicts in Africa. The United States continues to lead the world in humanitarian assistance, including famine prevention and relief in South Sudan, Somalia, and northern Nigeria and Yemen. Let's scroll down. We have invested in better health and opportunity all over the world through programs like PEPFAR, which funds AIDS relief, the President's Malaria Initiative, the Global Health Security Agenda, the Global Fund to End Modern Slavery, and the Women Entrepreneurs Finance Initiative, part of our commitment to empowering women all across the globe. We also thank, and you had to pause for applause here, we also thank the Secretary General for recognizing that the United Nations must reform if it is to be an effective partner in confronting threats to sovereignty, security, and prosperity. Too often, the focus of this organization has not been on results, but on bureaucracy and process. We discussed that earlier.
Well, not to mention a bunch of their treaties really are a threat to the sovereignty of nations, because they want to take the sovereignty and control.
Well, yeah. To be honest, like, wasn't United Nations Fund like a little while after, you know, nations had given up like their controlled states or whatever? Can't remember the exact term for them. So I just remember the earliest draft of the United Nations being near World War I, when everybody was starting to slowly give up their colonies and stuff, I think.
I think that's what Reality Check referred to as the Legion of Nations or something of that nature.
League.
The League of Nations.
League of Nations. League of Nations.
Yeah, Legion. Here I am. It's the Legion of Doom. Sorry. I'm prone to mistakes and bloopers, and on a live stream, you get to hear them all. In some cases, states that seek to subvert this institution's noble aims have hijacked the very systems that are supposed to advance them. For example, it is a massive source of embarrassment to the United Nations that some governments with egregious human rights records sit on the UN Human Rights Council.
Which Islamic nation is on the Human Rights Council?
Isn't it United Nation of Emirates or something like that?
United Arab Emirates?
Yeah.
Okay. I know it's one that executes gay people.
Yeah.
Yep.
Saudi Arabia?
Probably.
Could be.
How far we know it could be Iran.
Human Rights Council.
There's more than one and everything else. If you look at them and look at the actual members, I'm pretty sure we can probably pick out at least two, maybe even three.
Version Generic says Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
We have researchers.
Hold on. Hold on. Current membership of the Human Rights Council, 1st of January to 31st of December 2017. Albania, Bangladesh, Bolivia, Botswana, Congo, El Salvador, Ghana, India, Indonesia, Latvia, Netherlands, Nigeria, Paraguay, Portugal, Qatar, I think is one, Belgium, Burundi, Cote d'Ivoire, Ecuador, Ethiopia, Georgia, Germany, Kenya, Kyrgyzstan, I think is how it's pronounced, Mongolia, Panama, Philippines, Republic of Korea, Slovenia, Switzerland, Togo, United Arab Emirates, Venezuela, Brazil, China, Croatia, Cuba, Egypt, Hungary, Iraq, Japan, Rwanda, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, Tunisia, UK, and US.
Well, Venezuela and Qatar are definitely huge violators of human rights.
And so is Cuba, and the Congo is under investigation for aiding North Korea to bypass the sanctions.
No. It's not.
Well, the funniest thing is
Congo,
like it's
Congo and everything. You know, with their.
Aren't they the ones taking part of the damn Rwanda stuff and all that stuff over there? Yeah.
Yeah, you want to know? You want to know the funniest thing about this?
And everything, the kidnapping of schoolgirls.
Yeah, you want to know though? For these, it says their term expires for. It says for Qatar, it expires in 2017, and for for UAE and. For UAE, it doesn't expire till 2018. Same for Venezuela. Then Brazil down to the US, which includes like Egypt and Iraq and Saudi Arabia. They don't expire. Their like term doesn't expire till 2019.
Wow.
So they're in the human rights in the UN until 2019 from Saudi Arabia and Iraq.
They need to pick better. They really need to pick better.
Well, at least you have like most of the at least a few of the world powers still in there somewhere. I mean, they got they got Japan, China, UK, and the US until 2019.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's like. Let me send this. I don't know if I'll just post it in the Hangout chat if you guys want to post it.
If you type in the live chat, I can make you a mod so you can post a link.
Okay.
All right.
Hold on a second.
All right.
Hold on a second. Okay, continue. I'm sorry. I went off on a tangent for a second.
Right, that's okay. Well, we needed it. This is one of the reasons why I go through things like this. That way we can figure out what the big picture is. Because... You know, UN Human Rights Council, that's a nice title, but not everybody knows all the countries involved. So part of my live streams is to try and
some of the people in that council are not that good at what they do.
They don't believe in human rights.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Yep. The United Nations is one of... Let me make you a mod real quick. Add mod.
Interrupting like hell.
Yeah. The United States is one out of 193 countries in the United Nations, and yet we pay 22% of the entire budget and more. In fact, we pay far more than anybody realizes. The United States bears an unfair cost burden, but to be fair, if it could actually accomplish all of its stated goals, especially the goal of peace, this investment would easily be well worth it. Major portions of this world are in conflict, and some, in fact, are going to hell. And he doesn't mean that in a religious sense. But the powerful people in this room, under the guidance and auspices of the United Nations, can solve many of these vicious and complex problems. The American people hope, that one day, soon, the United Nations can be a much more accountable and effective advocate for human dignity and freedom around the world. In the meantime, we believe that no nation should have to bear a disproportionate share of the burden, military or financially. Nations of the world must make a greater role in promoting secure and prosperous societies in their own region and pay their fair share. That is why in the Western Hemisphere, the United States has stood against the corrupt and destabilizing regime in Cuba until Obama came along and embraced the enduring dream of the Cuban people to live in freedom until Obama came along.
And fucking wrecked it.
Yeah. My administration recently announced that we will not lift sanctions on the Cuban government until it makes fundamental reforms, as it should be. Also imposed tough, calibrated sanctions on the socialist Maduro regime in Venezuela, which has brought a once thriving nation to the brink of total collapse. And for those of you who are going, you're Cuban, how can you say that? You cannot continue to give concessions to a dictator such as Raul Castro and expect that he has the compassion to give concessions back, because that doesn't happen. You have to put sanctions on and make demands. That's the only thing that Raul is going to listen to.
That's the only thing that any country is going to listen to. If they're that fucking violent, they're not, in the past at least, then they're not going to comply right away, especially if they have a constant history since the fucking 1960s of being a bunch of assholes.
Yeah.
Well, it's like with children. If you have a child who is constantly misbehaving, giving him ice cream and an Xbox is not going to make him start behaving. He's going to know that his bad behavior is going to get him something he wants. You have to take that Xbox away and punish him for not behaving properly.
Did these people, did these politicians pass like high school psychology? Because I don't fucking think they did.
No. Obama and everybody, people that know me know that, in my opinion, all Obama did was an 8-year apology tour.
Kind of, yeah.
That's all he did.
Looking back on it now, it's just like, oh my gosh, how many apologies and amends did this guy try and make that, some of these guys, some of them deserved, rightfully. There were a couple of them that deserved it, but there were some that it was just like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you're like groveling at somebody's feet for no reason other than just like to get in their good graces, and even then, how long is that going to last?
Vercingetorix, the only answer I have to why did Obama lift the Embargo Act off of Cuba is because he was naive in thinking that Raul was going to go, okay, since you did that for us, we're going to do this for you.
That's not how it works.
That's not how it works. He also rescinded completely wet foot, dry foot, and I would have been more in accordance if he would have rolled it back to the original act that happened in 1994 before it was turned into wet foot, dry foot. Because I have to admit that wet foot, dry foot gave the Cubans a massive favoritism as far as immigrating to this country was concerned. And that's coming from someone who still has family in Cuba. For me to say that is a major thing. But yeah, I talked to my mom after he had rescinded it, and she said, to be fair and to be realistic, he made it unfair to the other people around us. And he was talking about the Dominican Republic and Haiti and all those places that, had to go through all the laws to get into the country when all we had to do was step foot on dry ground. So, I had a long talk with her, and I agree with her. Rolling it back to the act that was placed in and completely yanking it out from everybody's feet.
Did you see about reality check today?
Reality check. He did so much more. Obama raised my taxes so high my family had to eat from fucking food banks for a year, and now my taxes are 20 times more complicated to file. Exactly.
Yeah, and then something that people constantly seem to get into it with me about is saying that Obamacare was a good thing. And even with my mom as an educator and her working with some kids that don't have the privilege of having enough to some of them not having the privilege to have enough money to afford their own health care and all that, even then I still got to be skeptical of Obamacare, because for me it's I'm not sure how much it accomplished other than people now have to pay more taxes to give other people benefits. At least that's how I understood it. But
And our premiums went up, and we were forced to buy a product that some of us don't need. Like
don't need or didn't care for.
I don't need maternity care. I don't need birth control. I'm a dude. My wife doesn't need coverage for prostate exams. So,
and you're forced to pay for things. Each person is forced to pay for services that they will never use.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I think that was the issue with my grandparents, and so now I'm thinking on it like they paid for something they never used. They're paying for something they never used, and my mom's still saying like, you know, this was a good thing, this was a positive thing all around, and it's like,
You're correct. Reality check. It is unconstitutional to force a United States citizen to purchase something, but you know, all of the Obama fan club and everything refused to do anything about it.
Dick suckers is more accurate.
He said that he was going to write. They were going to write it, and in such a way that it could never be overturned. Well, we're picking through it now, and we're going to overturn it. We're going to repeal it,
unless John McCain has his way.
Oh God, John McCain, give me a break. See, what got me was,
how is that bastard not kicked the bucket yet?
You know,
I want to know if he's still allowed to serve and everything with a brain tumor.
Yeah,
that's a good question.
Because his mentality is compromised.
It really is. Yeah, honestly, I thought it was compromised when he ran, and I was probably like still in middle school when he ran.
Pick up the pillow.
Oh, you chewed up the lid for the Sharpie. Okay.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Real-time report from MWM Media News. My dog just chewed the cap off my Sharpie. Now
your dog ate your homework.
Exactly. Well, it's like what got me was the first time Obama ran, and people didn't either a lot of the people disregarded this particular phrase or just didn't want to acknowledge that he said it. Because he did say redistribution of wealth.
Yeah.
You know, that is a socialist thing. That's not, you know, a capitalist thing. It's a socialist thing.
But remember, when he was running, saying he was a socialist was code for the N-word.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Damn.
Yeah. They've been playing the race card since before he got elected, and they're going to continue playing it because he didn't do anything but divide the people.
They're going to continue playing it because they think that justifies him being a shitty president.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and well,
sorry, I spoke over. I can't tell if I'm speaking over or if it's echoing.
No, we're not. Not echoing for me.
I don't know who it is then. Because it's not me. I'm on it. Plugged in. No, I think it stopped.
Yeah.
Okay.
It comes and goes. All right. Socialist dictatorship of Nicolás Maduro has inflicted terrible pain and suffering on the good people of that country. This corrupt regime destroyed a prosperous nation by imposing a failed ideology that has produced poverty and misery everywhere it has been tried. To make matters worse, Maduro has defied his own people, stealing power from their elected representatives to preserve his disastrous rule. Venezuelan people are starving and their country is collapsing. Their democratic institutions are being destroyed. This situation is completely unacceptable, and we cannot stand by and watch. As a responsible neighbor and friend, we and all others have a goal. That goal is to help them regain their freedom, recover their country, and restore their democracy. I would like to thank leaders in this room for condemning the regime and providing vital support to the Venezuelan people. The United States has taken important steps to hold the regime accountable. We are prepared to take further action if the government of Venezuela persists on its path to impose authoritarian rule on the Venezuelan people. Rule that started with not Guevara. I'm brain farting on his name. He died, which, you know, pretty much put somebody else in power.
I know who you're talking about. You're right. It's not Guevara. It's
Do I need to do another search?
If we give it a couple of seconds, I'm sure somebody in the live chat will go, "Oh, it's so and so."
Yeah.
I do
Might be Fenrir because he's been a smartass for a little bit.
Ben had to leave.
Yeah, Finn had
Okay, then that one's out the window.
Reality Check made a good point with him and I
Hugo
can't.
Chavez. Thank you.
Yeah, it was Chavez. But Venezuela or even the Soviet Union and 1930s Germany, they're perfect examples of democratic socialism. I mean, that is what democratic socialism is. Look at Venezuela.
It's not democratic. He rigged it.
Well, but it was democratic to begin with. Chavez got elected democratically. Hitler got elected democratically. I mean, even Stalin was elected democratically.
Yeah, all of them were elected democratically, but they slowly turned their nation into something. And that's what I kind of fear with Hillary. What it could have been with Hillary is that she could have rigged it. Because she got that far to the point where she did kick Bernie essentially out of the primaries. And it's like, shit, if she'd become president, then we would have been, like, boned.
Well, that's the thing about the Democrat Party. They decided ahead of time that it was Hillary's turn to be the president. And so they basically went through the motions of those debates because they didn't want to piss off the Bernie base to the point where they wouldn't vote for Hillary. But it was basically a farce because the Democrat Party believes that we as the government know what is best for you better than you do.
Yeah. And welcome.
This is why I am not a Democrat.
Yeah. Welcome, Oleska. Yeah, you're just a little bit late, but that's okay. No worries. All right, we are fortunate to have an incredibly strong and healthy trade relationships with many of the Latin American countries gathered here today. Our economic bond forms a critical foundation for advancing peace and prosperity for all of our people and all of our neighbors. I ask every country represented here today to be prepared to do more to address this very real crisis. We call for the full restoration of democracy and political freedoms in Venezuela. The problem in Venezuela is not that socialism has been poorly implemented, but that socialism has been faithfully implemented. I like how he makes that distinction. And
I think that is probably the best phrase or sentence that he has ever spoken as the president of the United States.
Yeah, I would have to agree.
Yeah,
I think it belongs on a bumper sticker, a T-shirt, a banner. You know, put it everywhere.
Do you want me to put that on one of your mugs, Maddie?
I'm going to put it up in my Teespring store this week.
Oh my goodness. But, yeah, it's like, that's the one thing that I hope that people like, you know, like Riley Dennis, who have been on this train for like, I don't fucking know how long. I want them to be able to hear that and take into account, this does not work. No. This has not worked however many times that it has been implemented. How many fucking times has socialism or anything of the sort like been implemented? It has not worked well at all.
Nope.
Socialism and communism, they just have not worked.
Yep. And as a little update, the live stream from yesterday where I was educating everybody on all the sanctions up to September 2017, that live stream has been demonetized.
Are you fucking kidding me?
No.
My live streams that was titled "Free Speech Should Always Be Absolute" was demonetized.
Jeez.
Of course it fucking was, because somebody at YouTube has a hate boner for free speech. I swear it.
They sure are looking that way. Okay.
Well, if they're not that way now, if there's not some trigger-happy fucking staff member who's got too much fucking power up there, then they're fucked as Google is.
I'm thinking all the implementation of the YouTube hero.
Yeah,
idea
I didn't even
he could have.
I didn't even think those cunts were actually implemented. They're still fucking going? I didn't even think they started. I thought there was so much backlash they didn't fucking do it.
No.
Now they brought in the Anti-Defamation League and the Southern Poverty Law Center, I believe.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, has been
I am flipping off my computer right now. I know you can't see it, but I am flipping off my fucking computer.
It's I mean, not. They are either demonetizing and everything. It was all because of the loss of revenue.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the loss of revenue when all of those major ad personnel pulled out was so great that they couldn't afford to have a staff. This is why they're coming up with the AI and implementing it. This is why they're using YouTube Heroes plus AI plus probably
anybody they can pull in that is
and
on
they just
the
look for hashtag searches.
Yeah.
And everything. And if you hashtag anything, I mean, if any of those keywords in your hashtag match any of the demonetizing hashtags, then
yeah,
you know, you don't get
You're
any ad revenue.
Yeah,
you're
pretty
screwed.
much. From the Soviet Union to Cuba to Venezuela, wherever true socialism or communism has been adopted, it has delivered anguish and devastation and failure. Those who preach the tenets of these discredited ideologies only contribute to the continued suffering of the people who live under these cruel systems. America stands with every person living under a brutal regime.
Sorry.
Our respect for sovereignty is also a call for action. All people deserve a government that cares for their safety, their interests, and their well-being, including their prosperity. Okay.
Yeah, I wish he would have included Nazi Germany in that socialism, you know, the Soviet Union and all of that.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
Yeah, it's getting ridiculous. It's,
I mean, because it was the National Socialist Workers Party of Germany.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's what people don't get half the time is that Hitler was technically a fucking socialist.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and he had one hell of a propaganda machine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like about as much as fucking Kim Jong-un does. And the fact that people still are blind to this and still glomp on, oh, it was like racist people and all that shit. No, it was people like you little motherfuckers.
Yeah, exactly. In America, we seek stronger ties of business and trade with all nations of goodwill, but this trade must be fair and it must be reciprocal. For too long, the American people were told that mammoth multinational trade deals, unaccountable international tribunals, and powerful global bureaucracies were the best way to promote their success. But as those promises flowed, millions of jobs vanished and thousands of factories disappeared. He's talking about NAFTA.
Mm-hmm.
Others gamed the system and broke the rules, and our great middle class, once the bedrock of American prosperity, was forgotten and left behind. But they are forgotten no more, and they will never be forgotten again. While America will pursue cooperation and commerce with other nations, we are renewing our commitment to the first duty of every government, the duty of our citizens. This bond is the source of America's strength and that of every possible nation represented here today. This organization, let me scroll up, is to have any hope of successfully confronting the challenges before us. It will depend, as President Truman said some 70 years ago, on the independent strength of its members. If we are to embrace the opportunities of the future and overcome the present dangers together, there can be no substitute for strong, sovereign, and independent nations. Nations that are rooted in their histories and invested in their destinies. Nations that seek allies to befriend, not enemies to conquer. And most important of all, nations that are home to patriots, to men and women who are willing to sacrifice their countries, their fellow citizens, and for all that is best in the human spirit. Let me see. In remembering the great victory that led to this body's founding, we must never forget that those heroes who fought against evil also fought for nations that they loved. Patriotism led the Poles to die to save Poland, the French to fight for a free France, and the Brits to stand strong for Britain. Today, if we do not invest in ourselves, our hearts, and our minds and our nations, we will not build strong families, safe communities, and healthy societies for ourselves. No one can do it for us.
Those were pretty good and strong words, I'm going to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
Especially not the government. You are responsible for your success. The government doesn't owe you anything. Their job is to protect you from external threats, and that is it.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that people think that the government owes you something, no one owes you anything. Heck, your parents don't really owe you too much, because, especially when you grow up, because motherfucker, once you are grown up, you are out on your own. They can kick your ass out if they damn well want to. It's just,
yeah, people
are so used to, having being like bottle fed. That
Yeah. I don't remember exactly what Obama said, but he said something about small businesses that pissed off every small business owner, because he was basically saying it was due to the government that the small businesses thrived. And I'm like, yeah,
Build that.
no, that would not be the case at all. It's because those business owners are good business owners.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. We cannot wait for someone else.
Why the fuck do people... Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, why the fuck do people, like YouTubers, survive so well without the government's help?
Hard work and dedication.
How do you think that happens?
Yeah.
Hard work and dedication. It's just like being a truck driver. If you're a company driver or an owner-operator, if your wheels don't turn, you don't earn, which means you got to work it every day.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That which means you're working on holidays, you're working on weekends, you work through the night. The work is
Any
brutal.
job. Yeah, like any job, you just... Any job like that, even like people in my family, like I know my uncle does like, I want to say like sound and lighting stuff. He, like the amount of like demand in his work is like really, really high. So he has to be doing this like almost all the time. And so when he finally gets time off to see family, he goes straight home.
Yeah. And a lot of those guys don't have families. I grew up, my parents had a sound and lighting company when I was growing up. And a lot of the guys that we worked with, the stagehands and whatnot, they didn't have families, especially the ones who went on tour, because all you're doing is working, and you're working hard. It's a lot of long hours.
Yeah, he's got, yeah, my family, like, I have a couple of cousins, so it's like sitting there like, whenever I hear like his boss saying, oh, you gotta stay later here, you gotta stay this amount of time here, and I hear about that, I'm just like, really, motherfucker? You're gonna take time away from his 2 little girls? Really? You have kids yourself. Fuck you.
I mean, it's people that, you know, buy from small and medium-sized businesses don't understand that the businesses are run and they were started by somebody with a dream, a vision, and a mission statement. Somebody that firmly believes that they could provide a service or a product, you know, to people that would either benefit them or add to the enrichment of their entertainment or relaxation, or for whatever reason it was. It's the people that started these businesses and dedicate a lot of time to getting these businesses off the ground to make these businesses thrive. It has nothing to do with government help. It has nothing to do with the government at all, save the fact that we have to walk into a tax office and buy a business license. That's it.
Well, on top of that, a lot of people think that business owners are all rich, and they think that they're wealthy. I mean, yes, some of them are millionaires on paper because of the value of the businesses they own, but their salaries mean they still qualify for food stamps.
Yeah.
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 Okay, let's see. We cannot wait for someone else, for faraway countries or far-off bureaucrats. We can't do it. We must solve our problems to build our prosperity, to secure our futures, or we will be vulnerable to decay, domination, and defeat. The true question for the United Nations today, for people all over the world who hope for better lives for themselves and their children, is a basic one. Are we still patriots? Do we still love our nations enough to protect their sovereignty and to take ownership of their futures? Do we revere them enough to defend their interests, preserve their cultures, and ensure a peaceful world for their citizens? One of the greatest American patriots, John Adams, wrote that the American Revolution was, quote, effected before the war commenced. The revolution was in the minds and hearts of the people, unquote. That was the moment when America awoke, when we looked around and understood that we were a nation. We realized who we were, what we valued, and what we would give our lives to defend. From its very first moments, the American history is the story of what is possible when people take ownership of their future. Now we are calling for a great reawakening of nations, for the revival of their spirits, their pride, their people, and their patriotism. History is asking us whether we are up to the task. Our answer will be a renewal of will, a discovery of resolve, and a rebirth of devotion. We need to defeat the enemies of humanity and unlock the potential of life itself. Our hope is a word in a world of proud, independent nations that embrace their duties, seek friendship, respect others, and make common cause in the great shared interest of all, a future of dignity and peace for the people of this wonderful earth. This is the true vision of the United States nations, the ancient wish of every people and the deepest yearning that lives inside every sacred soul. So let this be our mission, and let this be our message to the world. We will fight together, sacrifice together, and stand together for peace, for freedom, for justice, for family, for humanity, and for the Almighty God who makes us all. Thank you. God bless you. God bless the nations of the world, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you very much. And that is how he ended his speech.
That was a very nice end to the speech. I mean, of course, you're going to have people that are bitching about the inclusion of religions with that last bit, but
yeah, I mean, he never hid the fact that he was a Christian, and you know, it's, to me, he ended it on a good note. He ended it on a high note that we all must come together and work together to make sure that everybody around the world realizes that they all have the potential to succeed and to live the way they want with, you know, liberty and freedoms.
Yeah, it's not, no one's holding you back. It's, I've seen so much shit that it's like, really? I'm sick of hearing people talk about shit that they really don't know about, because from what I've just heard, like, I don't really tune into stuff, and this is probably like a newer thing for me, but what I just heard, I enjoyed hearing. And for, like, I'm just looking back on this thinking of how many people told me how evil and awful, you know, Trump is, and it's like, really? Because I didn't hear too much evil, maybe a couple stupid phrasings and shit, but that was about it. I didn't really hear anything inherently bad in there.
Yeah. No, and it's like I said at the beginning of the live stream. You can tell when his speeches are off the cuff and when they're well thought out. And this one was well thought out.
I
really
do
well thought out.
That this particular president that showed up at that speech was the president we had all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's...
I mean, I've said it a lot. I'm not a Trump cheerleader, but I think I want him to succeed, because if he succeeds, then so does the rest of the country.
Yeah.
And so I want him to be the best at his job that he can be. And yeah, that may or may not actually happen, but you know, I want the best because I want the best for the country I live in.
Yeah, that's kind of the same for me. It's like, I'll be honest, I didn't vote for Trump when it came to the primaries. I pretty much followed along with what my parents did. But for me, it's like, you know, this is something that I think America has needed for a long time now, because you're not... So many people in my life have been telling me, you know, this is how it is, and this is how these people think, and blah, 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 blah. They're so scary. I have yet to see a single scary person that I should take seriously.
Yeah. And I mean, it's, you know, a lot of people, when he speaks off the cuff and he does his speeches off the cuff, it sort of reminds me of a coach before a football game starts. You know, it's really emotional. It's from the heart. It's a pep talk, and it may not sound presidential. It may not be the words that most people hear because of the way he phrases it, but they're the words that we need to hear. We need to put our country first. We need to protect our own interests. We need to strengthen ourselves first in order to be able to help other nations.
Mm.
You know, and don't get me wrong, the speeches that are well thought out, like the one where he addressed Congress and this one here for the UN, they're very emotional. They do hit points. They're very well written, and he delivers them very well.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm one of these people that, you know, a couple of people are like, well, you're a Trump fan. I said, no, I will And, you know, if he trips up, if he sticks his foot in his mouth like he has a habit of, I will be there to say, no, he stuck his foot in his mouth.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes he needs to stay off Twitter.
Yeah. Sometimes when you read his Twitter feed, it makes you groan and facepalm. I mean, that's just it.
I know there's like entire points where like I think I might have seen you do this a couple of times where it's just like, oh yeah, Trump made another shitty tweet because, and people have called him out, people who support him still, they've called him out for being a fucking dumbass.
I call him out for being a shitlord.
Yeah. Yeah, he's our shitlord in chief. I've called him that since the first tweet.
Lord in chief. Oh boy.
Well, he is. I mean, and it's, you know, some people say that it's stupid of him to tweet, but in today's mainstream media way that, you know, everything is feeling, where every time he says, I mean, he breathes wrong and they jump down his throat. It's refreshing to see tweets from a president because you get to see what he's thinking at the time, whether it's right, whether he makes sense, or whether he's put ketchup on his foot and shoved it all the way down his throat.
Well, I mean, the cognitive distance, the level of opposition to Trump that the left has right now is to the point where they would rather give Kim Jong-un all of the nuclear weapons in the world than let Trump be right.
Oh, I've seen that. Oh,
yeah. Fuck off.
Yes.
See, this is the kind of shit that makes me want to, like, actually go to VidCon, like, meet people like Riley, Dennis, Milo Stewart, all their ilk, and grab them by the back of the collar, drag them to the nearest fucking restaurant, sit their asses down, and give them a good talking to on how the world works, because it doesn't work the way these motherfuckers think it works.
No. It doesn't.
It's like, it makes me want to give them shaken adult syndrome or some shit. Because...
Shake them like a brand new.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. Just take them by the shoulders and go, will you wake the fuck up? What have you been smoking and can I have some?
I don't know what drugs you're on. You need to share.
Yeah.
I want to be ignorant and delusional right alongside with you and everything, because evidently it's some good shit.
Evidently.
Or please tell me where you've escaped from so I can take you back.
Yeah, that too.
What the hell do you think you're doing? I'm taking you back to the village that you came from. The idiot has been missing for too long.
Yes. I mean, it's, you can't sit there, and there are people that follow Trump blindly that agree with everything he says. I'm not one of those people. I will never be one of those people that blindly follows whoever's in power, because there really has not been a president in our administration's history that has done everything 100% right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And to think so is naive, closed-minded, and quite frankly, really, really stupid.
Did you see what
and potentially dangerous.
Yeah, I think I found which prison that these guys came from.
Yeah. I mean, and to sit there and defend Kim Jong-un because of what's going on is just... They took their brains out and stuck them somewhere and forgot where they left them.
No, I'm like looking at this, actually this haunted prison from Arizona. It's the name that people give it is called Hellhole Prison.
Yeah.
This is where these little fuckers came from.
Yeah, probably.
Well, it's abandoned now, so like you can basically go there and like get creeped the fuck out, but...
Scotch, we need Daleks in North Korea.
You need Daleks at what?
In North Korea.
I'm confused.
Wait for it.
Wait for it. Yeah, the total annihilation of, the North Korean government. The problem is, if you seek to remove Kim Jong-un, you have to put someone in his place that is dedicated to rebuilding the people. And in my opinion...
Look at the chat. Look at the chat.
Kim's asshole. Let's go.
Hellhole Prison, a.k.a. Kim's asshole. Okay. Okay, I'm screenshotting that. That is...
I love my live chat sometimes.
I do too.
I love you.
I mean, you know, if you need to get somebody that's dedicated to the unification of Korea, it needs to be one whole Korea again.
The problem is that the financial cost of something like that would be devastating. I mean, look at what happened to Germany when they reunified East and West Germany. I mean, it was very difficult because you had people who were comfortable under communism. Not necessarily that they liked it, but they were used to it. And so the devil they knew was better than the situation that they were going into. And it made Germany very difficult to live in for a very long time.
Yeah. I mean, there's always going to be a transition period, but if you get rid of Kim Jong-un, you have to put somebody in there that's going to be a strong leader, that's going to rebuild North Korea. You can't just take him out and leave a power vacuum. That's the problem that we have in the Middle East when we got rid of Saddam Hussein.
Yeah, it would have to be a unified Korean peninsula where it's the whole, where South Korea basically goes in and helps rebuild and make it a single country.
And even then, you're going to have people that are going to rebel because they're so fucking brainwashed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're afraid they're going to get eaten.
Yeah, which is ridiculous. But when you're brainwashed, it's amazing what you will believe.
It's like a fucking old wives' tale that fucking adults believe. Damn.
Yeah.
But they're taught it and because they're so closed off, they're so isolated in their country, they don't have any way of knowing any better.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, you know, it's people sit there and they don't really understand what's going on in these countries because they're isolationist countries. And it's like, you know, the people that tried to argue with me after Fidel's death going, well, the people were really mourning. No, you don't understand. Raul made it mandatory. It was a mandatory mourning period after Fidel died. The people that were interviewed during the funeral and after the funeral, I firmly believe that they were given scripts and things to say. And when they were on camera, there was a military person standing right next to the cameraman waiting for that person to go off script.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the way it works. You say what they want you to say. You believe what they want you to believe. You can't veer off script. You can't say anything against these dictatorship regimes because you're never seen or heard from again. That's the way it works. And a lot of these people don't understand that.
And instead, they'll hold your family hostage as leverage over you as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it past them. They will do shitty things just to get you to obey. They'll do really shitty things. And the fact that people still don't get that to this day makes me die a little inside. Like, how the fuck are you this dumb?
I mean, my mom told me that when her father went back to Cuba to get some more family members to bring them back to Florida, he was arrested when he stepped foot on Cuban soil and stuck in Las Cabañas. And for those of you who don't know what Las Cabañas are, they are mountainside gulag prisons that are along the mountain range there in Cuba, where you are never heard from again. You are not allowed to write to your family. They are not allowed to visit you. You are never seen from again. You are erased from existence.
Mm.
And you know, these are things that people need to know. And you know, it's you run into the same arguments. The healthcare system there is the best. No, the best for whoever the dictator favors. For the elite of that country, yeah, they have the best healthcare system. But for the rest of the population, they are in hospitals I wouldn't take my dog to if he was sick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I'm still doing my research to finish my series on Cuba. I've seen pictures of Cuban national hospitals and morgues with the deceased stacked like cordwood.
Well,
basically, the bodies in the fucking Civil War. I'm guessing.
When people like to talk about the literacy rate in Cuba, oh, well, they have such good education. So many people there are literate. Well, maybe, but a lot of that also comes down to what are they allowed to read. Just because they know how to read doesn't necessarily mean that their education system is benefiting them at all.
Yeah. Well, it's like my mom, when she said she had graduated from school down there. I think it was primary school. They lined them all up in front of Fidel Castro, and Fidel Castro was going one by one to the top graduates of that class to ask them if they had anything to say. Well, my grandmother, knowing that my mom is a smart ass, told her not to say anything to Fidel. So when Fidel got to her and asked her, is there anything you want to say? My 8-year-old mother said, I was told not to say anything.
Fuck.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so every time he asked her, nope, I can't say anything. Because she didn't have anything positive to say.
Yeah.
You know?
And your mother and everything is blatantly honest.
Yes, she is. Very much so. And she will be the first one to tell you that no, it wasn't all rainbows and butterflies under Batista, that Batista was squandering the money before the coup happened into casinos, into multi-million-dollar projects, instead of taking care of his people, which made him very unpopular, which is why most of the Cuban population favored the coup and Fidel when Che and Fidel, you know, unified and took over the Cuban government. Hi, Zeph. And, you know, people don't know this because they weren't there. And, you know, here's something that may hit people here on the panel and in the live chat. I asked my mom if she could write down an accounting of what life was like under Batista and then how it changed under Fidel. And her exact words for me is, give me some time. I have to be in the right frame of mind for that, because a lot of shit happened and our family went through a lot of shit.
I don't doubt it. Like, it's... People are going to be like... I know people are going to say, like, oh, that just means that somebody's probably going to have a dipshit excuse, like, oh, well, then it probably means it wasn't that fucking bad, because you got to think about it. Like, fuck no.
They went from owning, I think it was 2 farms and 3 businesses, to having all that taken away from them, to the fact that they were standing in ration lines for beans and hoping they got a ration of meat for the week.
Yeah. It's fucking disgusting what happened there. What the fuck is my dog doing?
And, you know, hanging out, considering humping a pillow or something. Dog shit.
Yeah.
Well, I'm hearing like something thunking, so I'm wondering if it's my dog. Jackson, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, he's walking around the room, and every once in a while he stands next to my chair and wags his tail, and he has what I call a tail of steel. So whenever it hits the back of my chair, you hear thumping on my mic.
Oh.
Yeah, that's probably what it is.
What kind of dog do you have again, Maddie?
He is a pit bull boxer mix.
Aw. So I got shitty little dogs. One of them's resting in their bed right now.
Well,
yeah.
Okay. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you everybody in the live chat for participating. Once again, if you want to check out the speech said by the man himself, the link to Rhetorical Entertainment's channel is below. Please check that out. He does commentate during the speech, which makes it, you know, really need to watch. He has very good content, and he needs your support. And, you know, go over there and pay him a little bit of a visit. Until next time, keep your minds open. Don't believe everything you hear, read. Do your own research.
Read.
Right. Read and educate yourself. You guys have a great Saturday afternoon. And don't forget, at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Mitch the Ripper's channel, there is another podcast of American Reality. Please tune in for that with Ronan, Mitch the Ripper, and Mitch's friend Ghost. So see you there, hopefully. And you guys have a great Saturday. Bye.
Bye. Bye.